It's time to see what we can do with this shadow meter. I took the rear contact cover back off, and I'm going to take these two alligator leads. I'm going to clip one there to that connector. I'm going to clip the other one to the other connector to the shadow meter. And the other ends of the alligator leads are going to connect to the two contacts on this 9-volt battery. So let's get that set up. It's important when you hook these leads up that these boots are pushed down as far as possible to cover as much of the alligator clip as you can, because you don't want the clip grounding out against the case of the shadow meter. It can happen. You want to get up in there, get on that baby nice and snug, but see how close it is right there to that case. You want to make sure that thing is not touching on either side. Alright, with the aid of my able assistant, wifey, she's holding the flashlight, which is something you never want your wife to do, but in this case, she's going to do it over your way. Is that right, hon? Okay, here we go. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to touch, touch, touch. And you're going to be able to see that little vein down there moving. See what's happening? It's just kind of quivering a lot. It's really not moving the way it should. Okay, I think what we've got is a battery problem, or not a battery, but a magnet problem. Well, of course, what all this means is I'm going to have to desolder these 3 wires, the one on the light bulb and the 2 to the coil, and I'm going to on the shadow meter, and then I'm going to have to remove the shadow meter and take the bottom off. Now keep in mind, I've never owned a shadow meter, never worked on one. And here I am getting ready to tear one apart. There's 4 tabs on this particular model on each side that have to be bent up in order to remove the bottom. Anytime I've bent tabs up like this before, some of them larger, some of them smaller, and I found the best way to do it is with a pair of flush cutters. You take the old flush, you got to be real careful. You got to be real careful here. Take the old flush cutters, get the edge underneath it, and then just kind of roll it up. After you get the tabs all bent up as straight as you can with the flush cutters, now be careful with those flush cutters. You don't want to cut that tab off of there by accident. You know, you're just kind of using it as a fulcrum to pull the tab up. But after you get them up, take a pair of duckbill pliers. Now, duckbill pliers have no teeth in them. They're just smooth. And you go ahead and put it on there, and you flatten each one out as flat as you can get it. You know, sometimes when you bend these tabs up, they go left and right. They're kind of crooked one way or the other. This old duckbill plier gets on there and gets it nice and flat and straightens it out. Now, once you get it all done that way, you should be able to just take your finger in the hand and just lift whatever it is that's being held on by those tabs. You ought to be able, if you've straightened them out, flattened them out the way they're supposed to be, they should come right apart. Now, I know there's some of you out there who just can't wait to see what the inside of a shadow meter looks like. So here it is, the grand opening.
Rocky.
Once the bottom is removed, we can go ahead and take this front frame off. And now it looks like I'm going to have to bend this tab up right here. And once I get that thing bent up, this entire thing should slide out and we can get a much closer look at the coil. Alright, the next thing to do is I've got to separate these two sides in order for this thing to come free. Now, I did not bend that tab up all the way, just enough to release it from this plastic. No sense in going overboard here. Alright, now when I spread these two things apart with my fingers, it should loosen it right up. It should get what I'm trying to do is get those tabs to release from the metal. One side's already released. There we go. And the other side's released. And there she comes. Hoo hoo hoo. Well, that's all it is a bunch of little sheet metal, sheet metal pieces surrounding a coil covered in paper or insulated in paper and attached to a piece of plastic. The coil is in excellent shape, very good shape, very well, and it just looks perfect. And then the two wires that come off the coil, one is soldered to this right here, and the other one is soldered to that one over there. That's all there is to it. And this black thing you see underneath my thumb is a magnet. It goes all the way around. And I think I need to re-energize that thing with a second magnet. At least on Philco radio bench, that's the instructions on how to do this. If your vane just kind of sits there quivering, doesn't do very much when the voltage is applied to the coil, that means the magnet's probably lost a lot of its magnetism. So we're going to try to put some of that back. Anyway, right now I'm going to go very, very lightly with an alcohol brush and or with an acid brush and some alcohol and get this baby cleaned up a little better. But boy, you got to be real careful doing it. I changed my mind about using alcohol. I don't know what the coating is on that copper wire. So I'm just going to go ahead and brush it down with a brush best I can, get some of the dust and crap off of it, a dry brush. And then I'm just going to go ahead and give it a couple shots with electrical cleaner. Okay, it's all brushed and cleaned. However, I did not brush up around here, around this contact here, or this contact here with the brush. With this brush, I didn't want to get up in there because it's very, very thin wire, and I don't want to disturb those solder connections. So, what we now have is we've got to do a magnetic, or an attempt to remagnetize this thing. Now, I have one of these, it was recommended on the Philco Radio Bench website, and I was going to use it anyway before I even read that. I just happen to have one of these telescopic antennas, that you drop a bolt or nut down in your engine, you can always go down there and get it. I'm going to go ahead and use that. I'm going to run it all the way around this thing, and it's going to take two hands to do it. I'm going to try to remagnetize it. I put the magnet down flat on the surface like this, which would be this black ring. Let me get over here where we can see it a little better, I hope. Let me get down here. And I took it and I ran it. I just took it like, well, this thing's sticking to everything here on the desk, on the workbench. Once I got it flat, I just rolled it around like this, all the way around in a circle, right on around that thing. I did that about 3 or 4 times, and I kept it on top of this black thing all the way around. Now, let's rehook up the battery and see if it helped it any. I may have to go back and do it some more. I don't know if you can see those two loose ends right there. They're right there. Well, time to go to work. The worst part about this break is one wire comes out on top of the coil and solders to the pin closest to me. The other wire comes out from underneath the coil, buried down in the coil, and of course that's the one that had to have broken. Yeah, don't ask me how, but I managed to get a hook in each one of those two little tiny wires and get them hooked together. Now I need to try to solder them. I only may get one shot at this, so I think what I better do is take a little bit of flux, paste flux, just a tad. Try to get it on those two wires. I need every little bit of help I can get because I may only get one chance to solder the two together. Alright, win, lose, or draw. Let me get some solder on this thing. Win, lose, or draw. Here we go. Well, we appear to have a connection. Let's hook up the battery wires to it and see if it's right. Okay, here goes. I'm just going to touch on the battery. Watch that little flapper in the middle there. Okay, we do have contact, and it's working much better, and it is kind of gyrating back and forth. I don't like that too much. I'll run the magnet over it a couple more times. Yep, I do believe she's fixed now. She's working much better. No more of that chattering vane. Watch again. Much better. Much better. Alright, let's get her back together. Okay, again, it's always a good idea to go ahead and take a little alcohol and clean up the inside. Get all that, decades of dirt out of there. I'm getting ready to rebend these tabs back down, but before I do, I want to do another check. Hook up the battery and make sure that the vane is still operational. If not, if I bend these down and then find out that it's not working, I'm going to have to rebend them back up again. You do that 2 or 3 times, they'll break off. Better to check it before you bend them down. And it is still working fine. Well, we had a bit of bad luck when I fired up the radio to check out the shadow meter after all of our painstaking repairs. What happened was the vane went all the way clockwise and just locked. That was it. It didn't move at all. It just locked. And I'm like, what is going on here? So what I did was, you remember this, remember this shunt resistor. Here's the shadow meter. You remember the shunt resistor that went around at 4,000 ohms? Well, I went ahead, and I don't know, it just seemed to me that that was probably part of the problem. Too much resistance, maybe. And I don't know why, don't really care. I know it's a 2 watt 4,000 ohm resistor, so I decided to parallel a 1K across it. And I hooked it across there with the alligator leads. There's the 4,000 ohm 2 watt resistor. I've got an alligator clip on each side. I'm sure you remember that from the earlier videos. Remember now, when I first fired it up, it just locked to all the way to the right and stayed there. Wouldn't move at all. But when I paralleled this 1K 10 watt resistor across it, I'll show you what happened. In order to help with this little demo, I took a pair of scissors and cut out a piece of the old dial scale here. And I stuck it on the front of the shadow meter with some Scotch tape. I may have to wind up doing that anyway, because there's supposed to be a screen behind the dial glass, and I don't see one in the cabinet where the dial glass is. So I may have to wind up resorting to putting some sort of material just like this on the front. And I'm going to try, if I have to, I'm going to try to go to Mark Opat and ask him if he has a piece of scrap material that's a little more, it's a lot more clearer than this old dark stuff that I can fix to the front of the shadow meter. So let's see what happens now. And here's what we have now with that 1K resistor in parallel. We have a shadow meter light. Let me tune it around for you.
Give it a try. Mornings on News Radio 1040 WHO.
Now, is that cool or not? Is that cool? I have a shadow meter, people. We all have a shadow meter since we were all in this together. And you'll see my alligator clips up here. I've got to resolder all the wires. I kind of was jury-rigging around with it, trying to figure out what the problem might be. And, the question is, why did the 1K resistor in parallel, and of course, it only requires 2 watt, but I only had a 10 watt in a 1K, so, overkill hits again, so what? I've got a shadow meter, that's all I care about. Anyway, the question is, why does this, how come it works now with that? Well, guess what? I don't know, and I don't care. I just knew that if I did, I know that 2 resistors in parallel reduce the overall resistance. And I can't just stick this 1K in there in place of the 4K, take the 4K out and put the 1K in. There's a mathematical deal I'll have to figure up and determine the exact amount. Then I can go ahead and remove that 4K and order the right resistor if I don't have it and put it in. But right now, I'm happy with what we've got. Check that out. I wonder if we can even get, let's see what happens when we hit old WSM, which, you know, my old standby here. It's a little bit weak, but you know the stronger stations make it move better. Anyway, so far so good. Next time, we're going to try to do an alignment of this radio from one end to the other. It may be a long, lengthy one. I don't know. I hope not. But it'll probably even improve this shadow meter operation. Make it faster, maybe. I don't know. Then again, it may not do anything. This is John. See you next time.